Welcome to the Journey to Fulfillment podcast. And tonight we have a special guest, Kevin Gonzales. How are you?
Hey, Pauline, I'm doing really well. Thank you for
Good.
having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. And so tonight we're going to be talking about your story. I met Kevin, I think a few months ago. We met recently through Facebook. And we've had a few conversations ever since, and you're quite an interesting person. I know you like to talk, so I'd love to give you the opportunity to share a little bit about yourself, and first of all, maybe ask you to introduce yourself to everyone and what you do.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, I do love to talk. My name's Kevin, and basically I am a launch specialist. I help basically online entrepreneurs basically save time and get out of that hustle mentality of working 10, 12-hour days, doing everything themselves, and kind of build a team around them, no matter what type of budget they're at, or even what stage of business that they're at as well. And I provide them with kind of like launch strategies to get them out there and to basically kind of like automate and have a proper strategy of list building and everything that goes with it, with scaling to help with their business.
Beautiful. Okay. Yeah. And that's well needed in this market as well. Nowadays, when we've got this coronavirus and lots of people are thinking about change, people are thinking about like starting up something. And so you'd be a perfect to help them out with that. So in terms of I want to ask about like, what's your story? How did it all get started for you?
How it all started for me was, I guess, for me personally, when I felt like my life shifted and changed was with kind of like a breakup from like my first ever girlfriend. And we were dating for, I think, 7 to 8 years, something like that. So it was like high school sweetheart kind of thing. So I guess that breakup caused like an emotional impact within me. Not in that moment as of the breakup, but later on down the track where I started to evaluate things. And I realized that I blamed like my ex for everything that happened, or like why my life was so terrible, or blah, 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 right? And then I started to see a pattern that some of my closest friends, like, they didn't even want to hang out with me. So I was like, okay. So this is very interesting. It helped me to kind of like step back and evaluate, okay, could I be the problem? So I guess that was like the whole perspective shift of, okay, maybe it is me if my friends don't even want to hang out with me and stuff like that, right? So I started getting into personal development, and fast forward, it was like around 23, 24 years old when I realized this, right? So I wasn't young, but I wasn't old, but it was kind of like, okay, I'm actually getting a grasp of the reality of things. I've been kind of like the victim, playing the victim role in my life, and this is the consequences of what's happening, right? No one wants to be with me. And then I've kind of like realized when I had that perspective shift of, okay, I just lost someone that was like really, really amazing, right? And I just threw it all away. Now it's very, very cliche, but that's kind of like what got me started. And yeah, I guess that was at the start of it. And then I kind of like did the whole the dream of getting a job, finishing uni. I didn't finish uni, but I still got a job at one of the top 4 banks in Australia, and got into a pretty sweet position there. I was kind of like a senior manager, whatnot. But I didn't have a uni degree. I'm like, and then I'm just like, I go into work sometimes, and then I have kind of like our workmates. I'm like, I don't have a uni degree, but you do, and like, how am I in this position? So I started to just like question some things, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna question everything that doesn't make sense to me. So that's what got me started with it as well. So the deeper I got into kind of like personal development, the more I loved it, especially sales, right? So with while I was working at the bank as well, I took on some online courses to just learn more about sales, because it just something attracted me to it. Something just drew me to it. And while I was working at the bank, I was basically doing sales, and I called myself like a closer. So I was selling someone's coaching packages online, and getting a commission from every sale I made. So I was doing that whenever I could. I was doing it at lunch breaks. I would take my laptop and then after work as well. And I just fell in love with it. That was like the moment of my entrepreneurship journey. And then the more I worked and the more I worked on my side hustle, the crippling fear or depression started to sink in whenever I was at my job. And it was just like, this sucks. I don't feel fulfilled. I would rather be working on my own thing. And why am I here? Right. So that's the thoughts that I was like basically thinking most of the time as well. And literally like by the minute, I felt myself like getting more anxious, getting more depressed while I was working at the bank. Like awesome pay, awesome benefits, awesome colleagues. It was like the dream, right? But I was just like, no, like this sucks. I wanted to follow my feelings. So I was talking to one of my mates at the bank in the print room, having some print room chats. And then I was like to him, I think I'm going to quit. And I don't like it here. And then he was like, no, you're not. He was like, no. I'm like, what? What do you mean? I'm like, I'm not happy here. He's like, no, you just think that, but you'll be okay tomorrow. Just sleep on it. And then, yeah, I felt like he has had that conversation with another person before, because he said it with such confidence and like, you know what I mean? Like he's like, you're gonna be back. Like, I'll see you tomorrow.
Many conversations.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm like, and for some reason that would like got to me. I'm like, huh? Yeah, you didn't think I'm serious that I would quit, right? So, fast forward 2 weeks later. I was out there. I was out like the work basically kind of like threw a getaway party for me and whatnot, and just started to pursue it. Yeah, just started just like dove in to entrepreneurship basically.
Wow, so you don't waste time. you just commit to something and you go and do it.
That's a good way to look at it, but it was one of the worst ideas ever because I didn't have a plan. You know what I mean? I didn't necessarily have a strategy yet. And the side business, I was only generating at about 2,000 to 3,000 per month. So that wasn't enough. Yeah. So I kept doing that. And then I kind of like realized that, okay, if I'm actually selling for someone else and I'm doing kind of like a lot of the heavy lifting, what's stopping me from like starting my own coaching business?
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's how it started. So that's how it evolved to kind of like coaching. And something that I realized is, especially when what attracted me to sales was the fact that there's like laws of human nature, basically. And the more I studied psychology, the more I started to study human behavior just to improve my sales skills, it kind of started clicking and making sense. So that was a big part of everything. And I guess one of my hobbies is just like I love people. No matter like who you are, I understand like everyone has their own story to tell. Everyone has their own uniqueness. No matter what skin color, race, religion, whatever it may be, right? It's just those things are just like a dividing thing for whatever it may be. But I like to see people as like human beings. And the more I studied it, like psychology and how humans behave, the more it started to make sense. So that's kind of like what the basis of what my coaching strategies are right now and how it evolved to this. There's more to it, but it's kind of like when I was doing everything myself in my business in the infancy of not even in the infancy, like I guess like around 1.5 to 2 years of doing everything myself in the business, I realized how damaging that was for me, how damaging it was for my relationships and my friends as well. Because I basically gave myself like a glorified job. Like, okay, I was doing everything that I love, but there was some things that were taking me off of the road because I was doing everything myself and then it got repetitive in the moment. So I was like, there's got to be an easier way to do this. So I was kind of like moving from niche to niche as well, because I'm like, what's going on? Like, I'm trying to find my way here. Like, this doesn't feel right, whatever it may be, blah, blah, blah. And I switched like niches around 3 times until I actually found the perfect one for me that's in relation to everything from everything that has happened from the past till now. I'm like, oh, I understand now. And
Yeah,
it's
like coming
basically
full circle.
absolutely full circle, because from everything that I've experienced to being that loner that no one wanted to basically be around, to basically loving humans and just like being around people. I love talking to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just all clicked. It's just all connected together. So now the problem that I'm basically helping um, solve for coaches is that they don't have to do everything themselves. And I realized that school and university and I don't know, society's brainwashing, whatever you want to call it, they have actually turned us into employees. They're giving us that employee mindset, right? Even school is sit down, raise your hand up, wait till you're called out until you can speak, right?
Yeah,
You're gonna
absolutely.
follow the rules. You can eat at this time, and then yeah,
Yeah.
it's just they trained us to become an employee or like a slave, right?
Mm.
So me going in with that mindset and transitioning into entrepreneurship, I carried that with me, and I was like, something's up, something's wrong, and by like even the example like putting your hand up and waiting to be called out, that shows in your business because what are you waiting for? You know what I mean? No one's gonna be like holding up a sign saying, this is it. This is your time. This is
Mm-hmm.
your time to talk. And I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of entrepreneurs have kind of like an issue of, or like not even an issue of that they're scared to put themselves out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of that. It's not their fault or anything, but we were conditioned to be like that. So there's a lot of flaws and a lot of kind of like mindset that they are carrying from this employee mindset or this mindset from school, um, especially one where you you gotta like shut up when you are in the presence of authority, right? When we
Mm-hmm.
see a teacher, when we see a policeman or a doctor, you shut up and then you listen to what they have to say,
Yeah.
right? That's very, very flawed in my opinion, because
Mm-hmm.
um, why wouldn't you want to question them, right? So if it let's say a doctor, for example, right, they are the expert. So for me to just like, why am I not going to question them? Like if I was going to be
Yeah.
speaking with a doctor about my symptoms, I'm going to question the heck out of them because they have the answers,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And
I'm going
then
to stop you there for a
yeah,
second
yeah, please do, yeah.
because I can tell that you are such a passionate man in your journey and what you have done, and obviously we can all experience like you know, Kevin has a lot to offer in terms of even from your journey and what you've learned along the way. And I just want to take a moment here to just deep dive into a few of the things
Please.
that I think would be really important for people to sort of have insight on in terms of what you've mentioned so far. I want to just go back onto when you mentioned about the you mentioned about loner as like a term.
Yeah.
And I think this would be really valuable to ask you in terms of when that breakup or any sort of significant events that anyone may have with relationships or whatever it is, when that pivotal moment happened for you where you were like, oh, I've, you know, some crisis has happened and now I have to reassess where I'm at. From that point, what was it in terms of, you know, the friends that were going away? Because this journey that you've been on is like, it's not something that many people, or, you know, like the average person may or may not go on. And so I'm curious in terms of like, say, friends, let's go into that friends part of how you sort of ended up going from relationship to no one to back onto sort of, you know, bridging that gap and maybe expanding yourself with like new people or relationships. Like, yeah, can you give us a bit of insight into that side? Like, how do you make new friends, or how did you find your way from there?
Yeah, great question. I didn't make new friends. I was like, okay, I want to try an experiment. So, excuse me. I started reading books. I think, what was the book? How to Win Friends and Influence People. So one of my friends recommended me that, and I was like, okay, yeah, you know what, I'll check it out. That was the first book I ever read out of school, out of university, or whatnot. I'm like, I hate reading. You know what I mean? As soon as I picked it up, I fell in love, and I'm like, this is an interesting concept. And I'm just like reading. I was still at work back then. I'm just like on my break reading. I'm like, that is an interesting concept, and I'm like, huh, I wonder if this will work, right? It's one thing to know the knowledge and have it in your mind, but it's another thing to actually put it into action. I'm like, you know what? My friends already hate me. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. And then like, I think it was like the thing that really stood out for me was make the other person feel respected, make the other person feel valued in the book. So I'm like, okay, how can I make my friends feel valued or feel respected? And then yeah, I started asking about them. I started asking about like their whatever their likes are, whatever motivates them, whatever makes them shine. And slowly, like you can start to see things like shifting as well, right? So I didn't go out and make friends. I mended the things that I applied the things that I read in the book to kind of like mend things with my friends. And then it got to the point where they actually said out to me, hey, something's different about you. You've changed. You know what I mean? And that was the validation and the confirmation for me that this actually works. And I'm like, personal development. I'm like, all right.
So you're saying that you tested it on the existing friends that you had, or was it like with new people?
No, existing. The ones that said like, oh, I don't want to hang with you. Yeah. And I'm still friends with them now. Yeah.
Okay. So how did you find the relationship changed after you went and like tested and, you know, they said that you've changed? How did that sort of change for you?
Oh, it got better. Absolutely. Like I got to experience them more. And basically I'm able to get them talking about stuff that they're passionate about and whatnot. So it's changed the dynamics and it's gotten a lot of respect for me as well. So yeah, now we're able to hang out one-on-one, and it's just changed the dynamics completely. And I feel like I'm not the person to just kind of like let go and just like be like, oh, you know what? These guys don't like me. I'm out. Right. So I'm the person that kind of like, oh, let me give this a second chance. Maybe it was me. Right. And it was me. So if I didn't kind of like realize that, and if I didn't kind of like apply that knowledge that I was learning, then maybe I would have carried that to a new set of friends, and it would have happened again.
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes if you don't deal with something, it just kind of repeats itself 100%. Until you learn the lessons.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. And the other thing is, you mentioned about when you had that sort of experience that changed you, and you started to question everything. You mentioned about blame, how you could like be blaming the ex or blaming friends, whatever, for leaving you and everything. Then you talked about like being a victim and sort of like shifting out of that. Can you talk to us about what that all means, and how did you actually manage to like find that, you know, sort of switch yourself? Because it's very hard, like when we're the person who is experiencing the trauma or experiencing the crisis, we don't know that like we're being victims. We just sort of think it's all, you know, it's that person's fault, like make you feel like this. How do you sort of empower yourself or get to that stage for you to get out of that and shift into like empowerment or being the hero, whatever it is for you?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I shifted to like the hero. It was kind of, it was 100% responsibility. Just realizing that there is, it's easy. It's so easy to blame someone, a circumstance, government, whatever it may be. And just point the finger onto someone. What the hard thing is actually take responsibility of, okay, where was my role in that, right? Every situation that we put ourselves in, or we whatever it may be, right? There is 100% responsibility of us being in that situation. So an example was maybe kind of like you're driving in the car and I don't know, someone cuts you off, all right? You might be some people might be wondering or questioning, how am I responsible in that? Well, we chose to go out of the house at that particular time. We chose to drive in that lane at that time. And you know what I mean? So that's our responsibility by choosing to be there at that time. So by actually reclaiming that, okay, it actually is empowering, because by taking 100% full responsibility, you're not giving that power to someone else. You're not giving it to that external circumstance or someone or something. And you're actually saying, you know what, I chose to be here in this moment, in this like right now. I'm 100% responsible, no matter what it is, no matter how victimized you may feel. Yeah, you're actually right that it actually is empowering to take 100% full responsibility instead of just giving that victim mentality or just putting the blame on someone, because you're actually giving that power to them, as opposed to just as opposed to just claiming whatever it may be is that it's responsible for you. And then once you actually step into that 100% responsibility of just everything in your life, that's when you actually take your power back, and then you can actually maneuver your way into things going your way, or like whatever you want to create to come your way.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that you mentioned about taking the power back, because I find that when you take the power back, it is more likely that you can start to really think about what it is that you really want.
Absolutely.
And get clear about, well, what are the ways that I can actually create that within my life, whether it's love or whether it's money, like health, like these kind of things. And it's more about, well, instead of allowing other people to control your direction, whether you mentioned about like the working for the big bank and being an employee, or whether it's like control from the girlfriend, like it could be many things for different people, but once we actually are able to take responsibility and take the power back, it's that then we're able to craft what it is that how do we actually move forward from that and actually become a better person. So yeah, great point on that. The other thing that I found really interesting was when you got to the point where you went to the printer with your workmate, and you mentioned that you felt that there was a point where you weren't feeling fulfilled or fully fulfilled. What were the warning signals, or what were the triggers for you to really feel like that way? Because I reckon, like even myself, depending on what job, I know for the corporate world, or I've worked for a bank as well, that there are times that people feel unfulfilled. So it's very common. But like, what are the triggers that actually make you feel to get to that point of like, that's it, I'm taking the control back and I quit? Like,
Good question. I feel like the first trigger is just waking up and just be like, oh, it's another day, right? I didn't look forward to the day, and I was just on autopilot. From as soon as I wake up, autopilot, and doing the exact same thing day in and day out. So just realizing that, I'm like, man, I did this yesterday. You know what I mean? Wake up, travel to work, take a shower, travel to work, talk to the people, travel back to work, maybe go to the gym and then watch. That was my day for like majority of the year.
So what did it feel like, Groundhog Day or something?
Yeah, it felt like Groundhog Day. And then another warning sign for that was when you start to actually look for things, or that maybe it's like a side hustle. It's like, okay, what's the purpose of me? I'm looking for these things, right? So that it may be just like for money, and that's okay. Like if that is kind of like the motivation right now, but the deep underlying feeling is that you're longing for something more. So I was longing for something more. However, when I was looking at side hustles, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna make some money. Maybe I can quit my job, blah, blah, blah. But the seed has been planted already. So by the fact, like other people who are maybe looking to side hustles or doing their own thing, the seed's been planted. It's just a matter of time until it sprouts, and you just can't contain it. It breaks out of the pot, right? So mine was breaking out of the pot very, very fast. So that was kind of like a warning sign as well. And then another one is just like, even though the culture was great, I felt like I was getting depressed and I was getting anxious, but I didn't know what it was, right? I didn't know what it was. And it kind of like finally dawned on me that I was doing something that I was just like forced to do. So that's kind of like what I realized. And slowly I was just getting stressed. I was just feeling anxious as well. And I'm like, I'm hanging out with some cool people at work. Things at home are really, really good. What is it? So like just by questioning that, it's kind of like the puzzle pieces start to form. So that was a warning sign as well. And the big warning sign was I was just partying every weekend, right? Some people
Right.
think that that's just like an outlet or an escape. Oh, that's just like the normal thing that they do. Let's unwind on the weekend,
Mhm.
right? But it gets to the point where it's like, okay, you're doing this every weekend. Like, are you an alcoholic? You know what I mean? Yes, it could be fun hanging out with friends and whatnot, but every weekend, do you really have to do that? And if I wasn't partying on the weekends, I felt down. I'm like, those are the moments I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Right? I'm not
Mm.
partying. I feel lonely at home. Maybe I'm just like watching Netflix, and I'm like, what are other people doing? So that was a big warning sign for me. I'm like, man, is this a mask that I'm putting on? Like, do I even like partying? Like, I
Mhm.
feel so crap the next day. I feel like depleted and whatnot. And that was a
Just a
big warning
question
sign.
about the
Sure.
partying that you were mentioning.
Yeah.
Now, because you mentioned a couple of things. One was the force from work, being forced to do things,
Mm.
um, and then led into partying. So, was there any, are they interconnected at all? Do you feel like, in terms of like, if you work really
Mm.
hard, did
Mm-hmm.
you then feel like you had to party even harder, or
100%.
like, okay, right?
Yeah. And then the funny thing, that's a good point, because whenever I got together with my mates, it's like, oh, I had a long week. I need to unwind. I deserve this. You know what I mean? I'm gonna
Mm,
go hard tonight. And I'm like looking at it now from this perspective. I'm like, that is really interesting.
it
That's
was
not
like an
normal. That's
outlet
not
for
normal
you,
behavior. Yeah, that's not normal
right?
behavior. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the thing with alcohol and whatnot is like, that's fake courage. You know what I mean?
Mm,
It makes you courageous to do dumb stuff. That's what I've realized. Like, real courage is actually stepping out into, I don't know, going out and doing a presentation in front of some people, right? That's real courage. But going out drinking and thinking like that you're like the best, or like, I don't know, whatever like drunk people do to
however,
just build that
it
courage.
sort of, yeah,
Exactly.
um,
I'm like, that's not real
puts it on.
courage. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's what I realized.
And when you say like you realize that, hey, like this thing isn't working for you anymore, it's like
Mm.
it's not fulfilling you, because you, when you don't have it, you feel down.
Mhm.
What was the moment for you where like that actually came up? Because how do people recognize, like, when is enough enough?
Mhm. I don't think people realize it. I don't think people realize it until it's too late, or unless
So it
something
wasn't
bad
anything out of the
happens.
ordinary, like, because sometimes it's like,
Yeah.
oh, like I drink too much, and then I, like, how sometimes they drink too much and then they're like,
Mm.
I'm never doing this again. Like,
Yeah. But then
and
next week, no, I
yeah, you
was
do it
like that.
again.
I
Yeah.
do it again. Yeah.
But
It,
then there has to be a point where it's like, that's the breaking point. It's like, I
mm.
can't do this anymore.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm just wondering, like, how did you come
My
to that
turning point.
conclusion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good question. My turning point came when I was running my business. I'm like, why am I still partying when I'm doing what I love now? Right. And then at the infancy of my businesses, like I said, I was in the hustle mentality.
So
I
this
got
is
out of that employee
after the
mindset.
job, sorry, after
This
the
is
job.
after the job, yeah. So
Okay.
after the
Yeah.
job, I'm like, you know what? I can't act like an employee anymore. Like 9 to 5 is not going to cut it. And I was still doing everything myself, blah, 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 in my business. So I was working 10, 12-hour days plus the weekends. I'm like,
Mm,
and then I was still partying. I'm like, okay, awesome. It's time to unwind Friday. But I still had things to do for basically my business on the Saturday. And then that's the turning point for me. I'm like, man, why am I partying when I could be helping people, when I could be serving, when I could be working on my business? And I'm like, do I really need this? So that is what caused me to reevaluate
uh,
all of the things that I was doing right now.
yeah.
Um, and
So
that's a
you
good
pretty
question as
much,
well.
yeah, you replaced it, like, as in,
Yeah,
because you had something that you were already loving and
yeah,
getting enjoyment from, and then that was like changing the habit of going
absolutely
out.
correct. There's there is a funny thing as well. It snowballs, right? It snowballs because you're so used to the habits that you had before. Maybe the drinking, going out, partying. Maybe you go out and just have dinner with friends and whatnot, right? And then I actually partnered up with some people in the city, and we were hosting basically live seminars
Mhm.
and then talks as well. So that's kind of like the first taste I got into basically platform speaking. So the first time I actually was watching like one of my mentors, I'm sitting down and just watching her, and I'm like, and in my mind, I'm like, what am I doing here? And I thought that was, yeah, I'm like, I thought that was very funny because my old identity was pulling me back. It's like, just go back, let's go back to partying, go back to doing some dumb stuff. Just go like waste your life. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So by me sitting there, my mind is just like wondering, like, what are you doing here? So there's like a bit of tug and pull with my
So which one was it?
me.
Like who was asking? The old you or the developing new you that asked
The
that
old
question?
me, the old me.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
Yep. Right. Because
Yeah,
it wasn't quite congruent yet. It didn't
absolutely.
believe that, like, that's what you wanted to do, to step on the
Because
stage.
absolutely, you know what the funny thing is, just like circling back after I quit, I'm like, what do I do? I don't know anyone, blah blah blah. And slowly but surely I was getting like synchronicities. I was getting invited to places and whatnot. And when I quit, i I quickly realized that I felt like I was like trapped in a bubble. I was in a fish tank because I was just so limited to talking with the people that were at work, maybe some friends of friends and whatnot, and just people we see I don't know, out and about, right? But then they have these 9 to 5 jobs as well. So it's always the same conversation. And then as soon as I quit, I met the most interesting people ever, right? So I'm like, I met like energy healers. I met like millionaires, entrepreneurs. I'm like, what the heck is an energy healer? And I'm like, you're weird. But in reality, I was the weird one. You know what I mean? If I didn't like quit and actually just dive into the deep end, I would have not met these amazing people and actually realized that there's so much amazing. There's like everyone's got their own uniqueness. Everyone's like so amazing, and I'm like, oh, okay, like what's mine? Like I'm just like a regular employee. I'm like, man, like there's so much more to the world that I'm missing out on. Like, what have I been doing to myself? Right?
You're in your own tank.
Absolutely. So I guess like for the audience or the viewers who maybe have a 9 to 5 job, like don't just like jump into it like what I did, unless like like there's kind of like I don't know, that's situational, but it's not, yeah, it's not for everyone. But what I'm trying to say is for your audience is like you don't know what's out there unless you actually put yourself out there, right? So the environment that we're in, or like what you're currently in right now, maybe that's limiting you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's like your environment has a big influence on you, just like friends and the people that you surround yourself with. So obviously when you come out of that environment, go into a new ocean instead of in the tank, it just becomes a new world.
Absolutely.
New opportunities.
I
want to go back on a really interesting point you mentioned about habits. And because I know, like, in terms of making jumps or any sort of transitions that people are going through, habits is something that's like it's could be difficult for people to build new habits, especially if you've like changed your mindset about things and you've like changed friends and gone to a new environment. What was like some of the habits that you felt that you had to change? I mean, obviously the partying was one thing. I mean, what other things were like big changes for you, or that you had to learn to develop for yourself to be like getting the results that you are?
Yeah, great question. Cool. Your audience isn't going to like this answer, but you got to cut off some friends. You know what I mean? Your environment, the people you hang around with, and like it's so cliche, like you hang out with like your 5 closest friends is who you're going to become. So I had to basically step out of kind of like my current friend zone and just be by myself for a little bit, because there's just so many distractions. Like even just a simple, I don't know, like a group chat, maybe on Facebook or WhatsApp or whatever it may be. Those things get to you, right? You're seeing these notifications and you're curious to see what they're talking about and whatnot. And the things that they talk about may not be serving you or like even helping you along your path as well. That was one thing that I had to kind of like let go on. It is huge. Yeah.
Because you've got like these relationships may have formed for many years.
Yeah, exactly.
And form part of your old identity.
Yeah. Now that's a good point that you raised there. Like, okay, like yes, it was many years to form this friendship, but what is the quality that they're bringing in? Like, does that make sense? It's like, okay, yes, there's time. Is time and like forging that friendship much more valuable than actual quality of the friendship, right? So I had to realize that. So there is a lot of letting go, but I guess one of the main habits that really helped me with my business is meditation, and it's a very big part of me. and I do it every single day, because basically what meditation means is getting to know yourself, right?
Mhm.
And that is a big part that I learned to do. And it's kind of like a practice that I continue to do, because I'm continuously learning about myself. But the byproduct of that, and the side effect of that, is I become more resilient. I become more tolerant. I'm more patient. And I'm just more loving in a way that I feel like I'm unfazable. So
Mm.
if kind of like an obstacle or a challenge, or a screw up in my business or even my personal life happens, I'm actually grateful for it, because I know it's going to contribute to my growth. So yeah, I feel like I'm
Interesting.
invincible. I'm unstoppable when I meditate, because I know that I'm able to realize that, okay, maybe I'm sitting in the fire at the moment, that I may be dealing with something, but let's look back on previous past experiences, right? I thought in this situation, I was never going to get out of it, but I got out of it. Now that I look back, that situation actually helped me to become stronger.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
by helping me, by meditating and help and kind of like looking back in the past and realizing that, you know what, I'm still alive. I survived through it. I've smiled afterwards. I've laughed afterwards. Whatever I'm dealing with, like right now, I'm gonna get through it. It's just a phase that is just gonna be another chapter in my life.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned about meditation. It's definitely been a habit that I've introduced over the last 1.5 years as well. I've been
Amazing.
doing it every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's funny because I think with meditation, it's one of those things where, especially if you come from like a different background or you've not been exposed to it before, it's sort of like from the outside looking in, it's like, what is this going to
Yeah.
do for me? Like
Yeah.
having stillness and quieting the mind. But unless you actually go through it, like you don't really realize the benefits. And I think what one of the things is control. There's a lot of people out there who may want to control how meditation looks like, what it should be like, what the experience is. You only
Yeah.
hear from other people what it really is. But one of the biggest things, like you mentioned before, is about just letting go and being in the moment. And I
Yeah.
feel like that is like, it's just so, that's been one of the biggest things for me as well,
100%.
is that it's like, you know, we don't need to like judge ourselves of how to do the practice, but just the act of actually just doing it itself.
Yeah.
It brings the benefits without you feeling like, oh, it has to have an outcome. I have to have something coming out of it. But it just, you just let it happen organically.
Yeah. That's actually a good point, because there's no such thing as a wrong meditation, right? Whether you meditate for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, whatnot, there's no such thing as a wrong meditation or bad meditation. Yeah.
And you can
That's like, you actually raised a good point about like letting go and surrendering. That's a big important habit in my life, because we like to, I don't know, I think it's just in this day and age, everyone likes to cling on and attach themselves to things. And by doing that more, you are limiting yourself for possibilities of other outcomes for it to be resolved, right? I run into so many business problems, obstacles consistently, and I've relinquished trying to control everything or trying to do it like my way, right? I don't know, this might be sound a bit woo-woo, but like when you let go and surrender to, I don't know, a higher power, or like, you don't even need to surrender to a higher power. You just like, you know,
something else
whatever.
outside of you.
Yeah. Like not even something else outside of you. You can just be like, you know what? I'm done. Like I give up. Like not, you don't give up. It's like, oh, I've had enough of this. Like you just, that is actually the art of surrendering, by even you saying that, right? And then I don't even know how to describe this in a non-woo way, but like magically things start to slowly shift and resolve. And what I realized is, by like letting go of control and just surrendering, like, okay, I'm just going to use like high power, but like something higher than me is kind of like finally saying to me, oh, you finally want to get out of your own way. Okay, let me finally fix this for you, right? Because the more I try to control it, the more I try to think that I can fix this issue with this outcome, the worse it gets. Because I'm operating from fear. I'm making decisions based off of fear. So by literally just chilling out and just like surrendering and letting go, like things slowly fix. But people are so impatient. Like You know what I mean? We've been so conditioned, like Uber Eats will be there in like 10 minutes. Amazon Prime next day, the same day delivery, right? Everyone is so impatient these days that they're like, I want an answer right now. But
the art is in slowing down.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I guess like I want to ask you about your experience with how you managed to sort of let go as well. Was it like, is that just through purely just from experience that you were like, hey, you know, can't be bothered, like let's just like just not do this anymore? Or like, was it a decision, or was it something that you got from like, whether it's meditation or something else, or a combination of things?
Yeah, good question. I stumbled upon it by accident. There was one point in my life where I was just in like a really bad place with my business because I kind of had like a falling apart with my business partner, and it got bad to the point like I don't know what to do. I have no idea. It was one of the lowest points in my life, and I was just like in a meditation one time, and I was just like, I'm sick and tired of feeling like this, and even after like the falling apart, I made some bad decisions as well, right? With the like kind of like the last of my money invested into something that had no purpose, had no like it didn't serve me whatsoever. It just made things worse, and that was the outcome of me making a decision based off of fear. I'm like, oh my god, I need to fix this straight away. I'm in panic mode, and then after that screw up, I'm like, oh, I'm left with nothing. I'm down in the dumps. Like this is the lowest of the lowest I can get. So I was meditating. I was doing everything I could. I was like, go for walks, blah, blah, blah. But it was this particular type of meditation where I just said to myself, or like something was just like, just give it up. And I was like, during meditation, I was just like, you know what? Screw it. Like, I felt like I didn't say screw it. I'm just like, you know what? I'm tired. And if anything is out there, if something is out there, have it. You know what I mean? It's hand it over to you. Like I am done. And in that moment, instantaneously, I literally felt like a weight lift off of my shoulders, and I was just like,
so powerful.
Holy crap, what just happened? And ever since then, like I was just like neutral. I'm not gonna say I was like ecstatic and whatnot. I was like neutral. I'm like, all right, I feel like I'm level-headed. I'm not in fear mode, but I'm still not gonna make any decisions to try to fix this. Just got on through my day, and then slowly and surely everything just like started picking up again. So I accidentally stumbled upon it, to answer your question, and ever since then I've just been using it.
Wow, that is so cool. Yeah, the power of meditation, getting quiet, and just surrendering.
Yeah.
You mentioned about like the business partner crisis. Any advice, or from your experience, there may be people who are thinking about you know, joining forces, having a business partner on board, or like new people who are like just getting into certain things that they want to partner with, because it's like sometimes you think, oh, like it's better together than alone, right? As well. Any advice in terms of that relationship, or you know, what people need to be mindful about in terms of when we're thinking about engaging with a business partner?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you actually brought that upon us. It's very, very cliche, but trust your intuition. Trust your intuition. If you see any red flags, any signs of, I don't know, something about your body just telling you to get out right now, listen to it. No matter how connected they are, no matter how successful they are, no matter how wealthy they are, no matter how skilled they are, no matter how, whatever it is that's enticing you to try to go to that direction with them, but something feels off, something just doesn't feel quite right. Listen to that 100%, because it is never wrong. If you don't listen to it, you're going to pay the price later on with so much more. So follow your gut, follow your intuition, and if something feels off or not right about someone, and then just seriously follow that.
Great advice. Yeah, I mean, we're, like you said, we're all like unique, and we all have unique voices within ourselves. And so it's, you know, that whole, as cliche as it is, you got to listen to yourself, listen to your gut, or whatever it is that's giving you that intuition as well.
Absolutely.
I want to ask about the You mentioned about at the beginning, the launch, that you're a launch specialist.
Yeah.
Tell us
Yeah.
more about the work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess it ties in with kind of like what I was used, like who I was before. So the more I got into it, the more I studied human behavior. I realized that there are three things that people love, or like what they kind of like are looking for in their life, and you will gain that respect immediately. So they're looking for someone who understands them, someone who respects them, and someone who empathizes with them. So if you have all those three, then it's so easy to sell to someone. It's so easy to improve that relationship with someone. It's so easy to connect with someone, right? If you can make the person feel one of those things, you're doing something right.
What
So
was it again? Let me write it down.
understanding someone,
Understanding. Yep.
yeah, being empathetic to their situation, and making them feel respected. I'm just going to elaborate on empathy because people may think I have like my own version of empathy, and my version of empathy is that I respect your perspective. I have different perspectives. However, I don't have to basically take on your perspectives. Does that make sense? So that's my definition of empathy, right? So even though there's kind of like different perspectives between us, I'm going to respect yours, even though they go against my perspectives.
So it ties in with the respect as well?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. But that doesn't necessarily mean I have to take in your perspectives into my life. I can still keep mine. However, I can respect yours.
Okay. Yeah. So that's sort of what your perspective of what empathy is, or how you conduct it yourself.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And that's what I teach my clients as well. And I guess with kind of like the launch strategies and what I do now is, when I was working that 10, 12-hour days, I know like most of these courses right now, it's like, okay, yeah, let's do everything yourself. I'm going to show you like all the strategies and whatnot, but they're getting you to do everything yourself. That's exhausting, right? And I know that it turned me off when I was doing that. And I was just like, this is not what I signed up for. I'm ready to go back to work. Like, you know what I mean? This is too much. So I realized quickly that you need a team to help you, right? Going back to the high school definition, if you are basically, this is like the weirdest example, but if you are like the genius kid who is getting straight A's and everything, and you go out into the world because you didn't need anyone, right? You're doing everything yourself. You're straight A's. You're studying all by yourself. You taught yourself how to become a lone wolf, right? Versus someone who was maybe in the rugby team. They know how to play in a team, right? They understand the concept of teamwork. So who's going to win at business or even in life when you have that lone wolf mentality? It's the one with the team, right? So an example is like if you've got an accountant, a lawyer, and someone who, so accountant, lawyer, and basically someone who does the finances and everything like that, right? If these two team members are not communicating with each other, what's the point? So I teach people to build teams around them and launch the proper way so they don't have to do everything themselves. Now, the cool thing is, no matter what type of budget you're on, there is a team available for you, right? So yeah, that's kind of like the realization of the loophole that I figured out in like, man, business owners, if you want to actually run a successful business, you can't do it yourself. You need help, right? And I teach people how to actually multiply time, right? And that's like kind of like a concept because you're creating a compounding interest of time by setting up systems, by setting up automations, even delegating, right? Okay, like maybe it may take 1 to 2 days to set up. Okay, but let's see it in the long run. Okay, it takes 1 to 2 days to set up. But if you compound interest with the time, you are basically saving so much time in the future that you can be doing something else.
Yeah, great point. So as you were talking, I was picturing like basketball team.
Absolutely.
And how like it's exactly that kind of concept
100%.
where, you've obviously you can always do things alone. You can be the point guard or whatever it is, or the shooter guard. But then obviously everyone plays their role. So that means that then you can spend more time doing what you do, while also, being able to, everyone else is playing their part. And then obviously when the whole team works well together, that's when you can get to the championship. That's when you can achieve your results.
100%. Yeah. And this is where like the whole human nature ties along with this perfectly, because as you step into this visionary, this leadership role in your business, it's a new skill. right? You're not responsible for, I don't know, creating content. You're not responsible for the sales calls anymore, right? What are you responsible for? Well, you're responsible for the people that are under you. You are the vision creator. You are the leader. So what's your role? To empower them, to help them to utilize their creativity, right? I'm not going to micromanage you. You want to write content for me? I'm not going to micromanage you. I want you to write content that is in alignment with my brand, right? I'm not going to spoon feed you. I want you to create it. I want you to use your expertise and have that freedom to utilize your creativity. And that's the best, like, because a successful business is kind of like a human resources business, right? If you if you make your team feel amazing, man, they're gonna go above and beyond for you.
Yeah, exactly. And otherwise you end up, if you're being a lone wolf as well, you might end up sort of being the employee again, but then within your own business, then you have your own sort of, you created your own job.
Absolutely. Well. Yeah. And it sucks. It feels lonely. You know what I mean? Being an entrepreneur already is a lonely game. There's like so many lonely nights. There's you're working 10, 15-hour days, and you lose track, you lose your relationships with your friends, your family, and whatnot. I've experienced this. It's like so lonely. So what happens when you have a team? Well, this person can keep me accountable and we all have those days where we don't want to work in our business, but you just need that extra push sometimes. You just need that extra motivation sometimes, and your team's got your back, right? Yeah. That's the best.
If you got the right team as well, you've got to get the right kind of people on board too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great. And in terms of this, I mean, the service that you offer, what kind of people is it suitable for, or industry in particular?
Yeah.
Can you share?
Yeah, great question. Basically online entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, service providers, and even it's basically anyone who wants to start an online business. It works for any situation.
Great. Yep. Cool. Okay. And then I guess if anyone wants to find out more about you, where is the best place to connect?
Yeah, absolutely. I can basically leave my website or even my case study funnel below. Yep. And I can give them access to my Facebook. I'm very active there. And if they want to join my Facebook group, then they're welcome to join in as well.
Beautiful. Cool. I will definitely drop that into the show notes as well. And lastly, I got a couple of interesting questions that I want to leave you with. And
let's do it.
The first one is because you've been on this fascinating journey, you've learned so much and everything. At this moment in time, what does fulfillment mean to you?
I guess fulfillment to me is not needing and wanting anything for pleasure or desire, but just being enough and just being alive right now is like fulfilling for me. Just to enjoy the entire process of, I don't know, eating delicious food, just taking a walk outside, just enjoying the sun and nature, and just like hanging out with friends, and just like everything in life is just an experience. And to me, that is what fulfillment means. Whatever we want to label good and bad, I want to experience it all. So that to me is what fulfillment is.
That's a beautiful expression. Yeah. And the last question, if it was your last day on earth and you had a message to give to the audience, what would that be?
Ooh. Be kind to each other.
Be kind to each other.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's been such an honor to have you on and share your journey. And for anyone who wants to connect with Kevin, or you want to start your business, be sure to check out the show notes and connect with Kevin.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pauline. And yeah, thank you for having me in this amazing conversation with yourself and your audience.
Such a pleasure. And thanks everyone for tuning in. Until the next episode. Bye for now.